Hey Ron, I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Today, I want to talk about the benefits of executive coaching and leadership coaching for the individual and the organization themselves. Now, of course, when people think of coaching, they're just like, oh God, here we go. Coaching, what the hell is that? Somebody asked me questions and I try to answer, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I hear it. And that's not entirely wrong, I can't lie. But not everyone's meant to be coached, okay? The person who needs to be coached is somebody who's an expert already but needs to raise their game in some way, shape, or form. Now, when you think about coaching, don't think therapy. It's not the same thing. Now, I'm not a licensed therapist in any way, shape, or form, and you can get a licensed therapist or counselor or psychologist to tell you about the real definitions of what therapy is. However, my basic understanding is that therapy helps you manage your past, maybe even your present. But coaching is about framing for the future. What is it that you want to achieve? Now, I'm not saying therapy doesn't help with that stuff, but coaching is about achievement. It's about trying to actually materialize the future in some way, shape, and tangible form. And so, what we do with that is we try to raise awareness so that you can better manage yourself so that changes can actually happen. That's exactly how it works. So this is why the questioning comes into play, the really good listening comes into play, the feedback and everything else. It doesn't mean the coach can't advise and be consultative by nature. I believe they can. You can have a coaching style. You could be a consultant that has a coaching style or a mentor that has a coaching style, or you could be a pure coach. It kind of depends on the situation and the person you're talking to. But there is a huge benefit for organizations. Now, of course, why is coaching so useful? Why does everyone bang on about it? When we think about leadership, when we think about the practical elements of leadership, in order for you to be a great leader, a lot of it is attributed to emotional intelligence. And again, emotional intelligence is not just about being an emotional person. It's about being aware of how we respond in different situations and knowing how to change our behavior to tailor it towards a specific goal or thing that we're trying to achieve. In addition to that, what we're trying to also do is be in a position where we can observe others and change our behavior to create influence. That is emotional intelligence. Now, what does coaching come into play? Coaching is essentially an emotional intelligence practitioner. That's what it is. And really, that's leadership. The only difference is with coaching, I may not be leading a team, so to speak, but as a leader, I'm leading teams. Now, of course, where does coaching not come into play as an actual leader? If it's urgent, things need to be done. We ain't got time to be like, so how do you feel about it? Nah, things need to be done, okay? If someone's just started, you need to tell them what to do, so to speak. And of course, yes, you can enable and empower through questions and stuff, but if it's totally new to them, that's where mentoring and training comes into play. But everything else, yeah, a coaching style becomes useful because what you're doing is you're empowering the person, you're giving them the responsibility to actually raise themselves, raise their performance, rather than being relying on a system that doesn't enable things to necessarily work the way it needs to work. Okay, so the reason why a coach is really good for this stuff because it helps boost key leadership skills. Now, when we think about emotional intelligence and we think about skills, here are some things we can think about. We can think about number one, good communication skills. What does that look like? Listening well, so active listening. Listening for things or to things or with people, okay? Number two, it's also making sure that you ask enabling and empowering questions, asking clean questions that helps you get a specific result and or frame or understanding for the person that you're working with. That also contributes to good facilitation. There are situations where conflict may arise and you have to have good conflict management and know how to maneuver this space so that you set the conditions for learning. That's what facilitation is. The other thing is persuasion. Again, sometimes you have to have bargaining power or negotiating power in order to understand what to say at the right time and how to say it. You start to utilize something known as self-monitoring within a space. You monitor self to understand how to reflect back the behaviors that will get the result that you need. Okay, so these are all the different things as well. Public speaking as well, because again, with the asking of the questions that the leader may have never been asked before, it raises the awareness. That's why a trained leadership or the executive coach or performance coach is useful when it comes to leaders within these different situations. Of course, if you're stressed, if you're dealing with ambiguity and complexity and all these different things there, such as the COVID years or war or whatever it may be, you don't have time for this stuff. So having dedicated time with somebody who understands how to, again, help people within this situation and calm them down and think more logically or practically or maybe even more emotionally is useful. This is why this stuff is key. An executive coach is key. Sometimes your head is so much in the clouds that you don't have time to really set real goals. And if you have set real goals, it's almost like, well, how do I know these goals are smarter? Now, not everyone's going to use smarter. So that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, environment-friendly, or risk-averse, so to speak. It's not always going to be smarter. You can use a different sort of thing, but how do I know it makes sense for me as the leader? How do I know these goals are aligned to my career development or leadership development or progression? I don't know these things. I'll need something, some sort of mirror or something to help me create a reference point in terms of how to move forward. When it comes to managing my team, how do I know that actually my team like my leadership style? Is it the right style for them? Do I need to adjust something? I know you could do a 360 and stuff, and that's really great because it raises awareness, but it doesn't help with the self-management part, or the social management, or the social awareness bit. So, well, it may help with the social awareness, but the point I'm making is that the coach helps you understand how to tackle those things. And yes, you could do these things yourself, but to have that additional person, it just widens the scope. It just widens it so much more because this person can be a bit more objective. They're not invested in it the same way you are, but they're invested in your development. And so that helps with developing your sort of like acumen for knowing how to respond and react in different situations. I remember when I was coaching somebody who was, well, I think they were either in the C-suite or just below it. And they didn't know how to basically act or respond to different C-suite members. I think it was the chief marketing person and the COO as well. And we had numerous conversations about how they could adopt a certain approach. But what they recognized is that the coaching that we had been going through was a good measure and good standard for how they could approach the situations with these different individuals without changing their character. So they adopted the good questioning, the certain level of holding back and not sort of like following their own inquiry, but focusing on the inquiry of the person who was asking the question or wanting to do a specific thing. So it's almost like the coaching was practice for them, but they didn't recognize that until they got themselves into that situation 4 or 5 sessions afterwards. So coaching becomes a really useful thing when it comes to stuff like that. Of course, the great thing is that coaching doesn't have to be a fluffy thing. If you're taking a consulting sort of approach, or almost like an approach more like a project manager, you would have your goal and your objectives, and there would be key metrics or success criteria that you're looking for that enables you to understand if the coaching was successful or not. You may do a bit of a before and after, okay? Now, of course, it won't fully be dependent on the coaching, but the coach may be in a situation where they hold that person to account. This is why I've always said that coaching and the client that you're working with is a partnership. This is like the coach is not above the C-suite or the leadership person or the aspiring leader, and likewise it's not the other way around. It's just because you've paid them. No, this is a partnership. You've come into union. Yes, one person's paying the other, and of course the coach has certain expertise or whatever it may be, but their expertise lies in the fact that they can coach a certain way, they can speak to you a certain way, they can create the conditions for learning, they can allow you to open up and be a bit more vulnerable to understand how you need to improve. They may suggest things here and there based on their own experiences and stories, but again, they're helping you do the inner work that you may not have been able to have done. And this may be addressed by a few coaching techniques and models and different things that they can take into their workplace and understand from a macro standpoint how they can maneuver. Okay, for example, if you're looking at things like the Tuckman model, it's a great representation of what organizations or teams go through when they're going through change. Okay, so these are things that they may not be aware of, but even if they are aware of it, are they actually applying it and understanding how they can utilize it within their space? A coach can help you do that. A good coach can help you do that and integrate that into your life. And so the final thing for me is really centered around culture. This is all underpinning culture of the individual and of the organization, if an organization is involved. And the reason I say this is because my definition for leadership is living by example. But in addition to that, I believe that culture is defined by leadership. If your leadership is poor, if it's toxic, if you're not great at what you're doing, you're not realizing you're affecting tens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of lives based on your poor leadership. So bear this in mind. And so if you want to be at a position where actually you're at the top of your game, then maybe you need a coach. And if you need a coach, I may be the person that you need, okay? Now, with that in mind, if you're looking to have that Pep Guardiola or Arteta next to you, helping you make better decisions, improve your strategy, think more ethically, and raise performance for yourself and for your teams, then we can have a conversation to see how we can make that happen for yourself, and you can have a brighter tomorrow as well. And that's so cheesy at the end, but it just came out. If you want to see more videos centered around life management and portfolio careers, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.